ceremony or observation or recognition of some kind of event or holiday, invite them, because it makes them develop lasting contacts with the advisory committee, and they can learn on an ongoing basis what's going on with the program. And so they can know the impact. They can understand, okay, this is where we start from. We're in a very severely cut back, depleted situation, but with investments that I hope are going to make it through the whole budget process, that we'll be able to start to build back, and if you can help the legislators and staff understand what that means to you. That is a really critical learning process that they need to have. Not all of the legislators have an understanding or familiarity with the program. So if the legislator is a former county supervisor, many of them are. For example, Mark Stone in the Assembly, he's a former county supervisor. He was chair of a policy committee that heard IHSS bills last year. He has a lot of background to connect. Our current Human Services chair in the Assembly, he's a former city council member. So counties run the programs, cities don't run those programs, they run other programs. And so you can just get a sense of maybe some of the level of familiarity that some legislators have. So when you go into the legislator's office, they are going to be happy to see, again, constituents or people from the district who are not just a private lobbyist coming in to sell them on an issue. So I think from the get-go, you have an opportunity to have a real conversation with people in the office. And the legislator wants to know that they are meeting with constituents. That's very important. It's an important connection that legislators have, to know that there are actual constituents in the room who live in their area and have the option of voting. So I think when you go into the Capitol and do visits, the visits can last anywhere from, it's a busy time, it's a crowded day, they can last anywhere from 10, 20, 30 minutes. So I would just, take advantage of the time that you have and make the most of just trying to land your biggest priorities, your biggest core issues, whatever is the message that you want to deliver. Especially if you only have 10 or 15 minutes, I would try and think about, maybe you've already done this already, you have your positions that you've talked about, but if you have 1 or 2 or 3 things that you really want to drive home with that legislator's office, I would think about organizing that feedback. So you spend part of the time, if there's not a lot of familiarity in the office with the program, is talk about what the program is, why is it so critical, and then what are your top priorities for the coming year. I think that when legislators have gone on site visits and when they have visited the program at the county or at a consumer's home or some kind of activity locally, it is eye-opening. It is very informative. I think too often people learn about programs just reading black and white, this is what it is, this is how much funding is associated with it, and they don't really get out in the real world. So I think at some point, a site visit or some kind of personal connection locally can be very helpful, very, very informative. And I know that people who have done that, it has really informed their perspective. There have been, as I'm sure you might be aware, different schools of thought, just stepping back, very fundamentally a philosophy about what's the purpose of government? How should government resources be invested? And in the past, there have been voices, as you know, who support taking resources out of government and shrinking programs all across the board. It doesn't really matter what the purpose is. That was a very strong train of philosophy, especially during the worst of the budget crisis. And so I think for some of the more conservative, philosophies that exist in the Capitol that they really want to know why. Why should we be investing resources in the programs? And if you happen to be with an office that is very new to the program, you might want to put that explanation out there. Why is it meaningful? Why is it important to stay at home? Why is it important to be able to do as much as you can yourself independently? There's just a certain number of legislators who come from different walks of life who may have never encountered the IHSS program. There are school teachers, college administrators, private business people, as I said, county supervisors, city council members. So again, I do want to emphasize that there is a sense of hope in the Capitol. And while the governor himself continues to be very cautious, very slow in working on issues, I think that this is the dynamic that he has set up in the past. He himself is not going to go out in front and propose a lot, but our legislators can push him there, can really get him to be there. I think he is very proud of the fact that his overall message is, I am cautious. I am cautious with funding. And our legislators' message is, that is not the end of the story. That yes, the legislators want to be very mindful of how resources are spent, but that they believe in investing in programs that support people. And believe me, they are going to be there pushing on the governor and the administration to make some investments this year. So where we get and how far we get, it's an unknown. But I think with the recovering revenue and the fact that we have independent, nonpartisan budget voices saying, Governor, we think we have $3 billion on top of what you project we have. And so while a substantial amount under the current funding formulas is slated for the school system, there is still some amount, some increment there up for negotiation over how to reinvest. So I am very hopeful that we can make progress, and with the legislators understanding the programs, being familiar with them, making a personal connection to, yes, this is important for my district. This is important to people in my district, that we can really make progress this year. So if there are questions, I'm happy to talk more about questions that people might have about legislators or the day tomorrow. And there are going to be a lot of people in the Capitol. It's a good time to be there. A lot of different groups visiting, and it's a busy time for sure. Yes.
As a disabled person, I have a really hard time making it to Sacramento. I come from Riverside County, and there's many occasions when I would have come and would love to have come to testify at hearings on particular issues, on particular bills. And I notice that quite often we'll have the same people coming to these hearings because they live near to Sacramento.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, what do you think the chances are of legislators in this day and age? It seems so crazy that we can't testify via video. Do you think there's any chance of getting a change on that so that we can have our voices heard?
No, I hear you on that point. It's absolutely, the Capitol is, part of it is a really ancient structure, but we are starting to have it updated to accommodate different ways of permitting folks to testify. And I mean, that's something that I'm happy to take back to folks. In the past, we have made phone access possible. And so that is something that that was facilitated in the past, and I can ask about the video conferencing capability. I don't know a lot about that structure, but I hear your point. I'm really glad that you were able to travel here this time and take on the challenge of travel to Sacramento.
I have to drive because the airlines won't fly me because I can't sit up straight. And so that means, 5, 6 days to get here and back. And that's a lot of funding as well as a lot of time. And I appreciate they've had a lot of telephone conferences, but not for hearings that I've heard of. I mean,
It's been several years since I do remember when Noreen Evans was the chair of one of the committees, and that's going back a few years that we made phone access available. But you're absolutely right that we should be revisiting that and considering that. Yep.
Well, my concern is kind of like what her concern is about videotaping. I know that the phone hearings have happened, and you call in, and you're lucky if you get on that call to be able to speak. So, I mean, it would be like if you had somebody, let's say we invite this young lady to be in front of the hearing, that some sort of arrangements could be made to do that, because as a member of the CICA group, we try to get people that we know will show up. But we also have other people that are throughout the state that might be a better representation.
And I think I know what you're referring to, because I have been on those calls also, that the Department of Healthcare Services has been convening stakeholder calls
And you're just on
and
the
various
phone.
issues. And so I personally, I would not call those stakeholder calls. They are sort of like informational. You may be on the line and you may listen to us. But I agree, there's very limited opportunity for any kind of back and forth exchange, or for very many people to contribute their feedback. So I think that it would be a big improvement to that process to figure out a way for more conversation. And I know the phone calls are big, but that should not be a bar to having people, be able to participate in the conversation. And I think that is the State Department trying to incorporate feedback into their implementation of programs. And I think what I was thinking of was when the legislature is noticing for public hearing proposed legislation or proposed budget issues, that there's no way that we could limit I shouldn't say that. I mean, when there are hearings in the Capitol, they are absolutely wide open to the public, and people who come and want to participate are welcome to do that. I mean, sometimes they are asked to speak for 2 minutes because there are 200 people in line, and literally. And I mean, there can be logistical questions like that are very real. But it's absolutely open to the public. So we would have to make it a better point of access for sure. Any other questions in the back?
Yes, is there a definite timeline on when the 7% will be into effect?
Well, let me just say that what is the action? It was an initial action taken by the Assembly Budget Subcommittee. And the action was to restore that cut effective July 1st. So that is one House's initial action. The Senate needs to act, and so there will be additional actions taking place on Thursday. And then the rest of the budget will be negotiated with the governor. And we won't know the package until close to June 15th. I think by June 15th is the deadline to vote, and absolutely that is when the legislature will take a vote, is June 15th. So in between there, the negotiations will happen that will define how is that going to work, when is it effective. I mean, I know it's something that our legislators feel very strongly about, and I have I think there's much more open space for it this year, if that makes sense. I think in previous years, the governor's administration is saying, we don't have money to spend on anything. That's not what we're hearing this year. So this is an opportunity. How far we get, I don't know. I don't know. It's up to the governor.
You getting good trailer bills coming through?
Pardon me?
We getting good trailer bills coming through? You see any trailer bills up that we should be supporting, or?
I think that it's still a little bit up in the air. We have to see what the Senate does. So we just know what's moving forward. Either we have identical actions, so it's just one proposed action for the governor to look at, or there will be more discussion depending on the details of their version. So at this point, I can't answer that, but
What's the Assembly moving through now? What do you think they're moving through?
what is the Assembly what?
What's the Assembly moving through? What kind of bills do you think, the trailer bills, do you think they're moving through on the budget that might be tacking on?
I think that, we will have something available that provides for restoration effective July 1st. And that's what we will move forward. And we're not going to get caught up in, is it one particular funding source or another particular funding source? It's just, we're going to restore it. We don't really need to do that. The governor can, earmark resources for that. So this will be the kickoff of the core part of the negotiation between the legislature and the governor. And we'll know shortly before June 15th. So I'm very hopeful that we can make progress on it this year. What's that, Randy?
I heard that Cheryl Brown might want to put a trailer bill onto, for SSI, SSB,
Well,
and then we might be having less of an ask.
The Assembly did put forward a proposal last year. So it didn't get included in the final package, obviously, but we're very hopeful that something will move forward again this year. Yeah, she's very committed to the issue. So anyway, thank you very much for the time and the invitation. I'm really sorry I have to step back to the Capitol. Welcome to Sacramento.
Thanks very much, Gail. It's a busy, busy time, and get your race back. Our next speaker now is Fran Smith, who's the Public Authority Director for Yolo County. And we're going to do a couple of scenarios for you on actually doing visits. And Fran is wonderful. I mean, she has made so many visits that she can walk you through any kind of visit.
Howdy.
Well,
So, you know everything you have to do, right? Yes? Gail just explained it to you. So we, Cindy and I are going to have legislative visit in the senator's office. But I don't know where to put that office, because if we did it up here, those of you in the back of the room probably can't see or hear us. What do you think? Huh? Charles says it's okay. We were thinking we could set up the office over there, and some of you would have to turn your chairs around to see us. William, what do you have to say? Oh, well, William, I would like to ask you to put 2 chairs over there.
Okay.
One for me and one for Cindy. And if you could all look over that way. I want to assure you that we have some handouts on the issue that we're going to talk about. And we also have a handout on how to write letters and how to make the appointment. And you can pick those up after we're done. If we want to change the world, we can start with the room.
We do. And then just put the mic right in between.
Maybe come down a little bit. We can hand the mic back and forth. We're just going to hold it. Thank you so much. So for the first role play, if we can sit, Cindy. I would like to introduce Senator Cynthia Calderon, and her visitor is going to be, I can't lift it. I'm going to put it down on the floor so you can see over. So her visitor, her constituent, is going to be this cranky old lady named Gertrude Berry.
Good morning. What brings you to my office today?
I need some help. I've been living on supplemental security 10 years, and I'm pretty fed up with the way you politicians have been letting people like me get further and further behind. How do you expect us to live on the miserly bit of money we get each month? Don't you care about us?
Oh, I want to assure you that I am one politician who does care about our older constituents, including those with disabilities. And and I have to tell you, I wasn't aware of this issue you're raising. Please tell me more. But before you begin, I want you to know that I have a meeting that starts in just a few minutes.
Well, I'm not a mathematician, so I don't have figures. I don't know how many people are in the same situation I am, or what it will cost to fix the problem. All I know is in 2009, I got $907 a month. I could barely pay my rent and buy groceries and pay for my prescriptions. I have to take a lot of medicine, you know. Since then, my checks have gone down, and what have you done about it? Everything costs more now than it did 6 years ago. That's what I want to know. What have you done about it?
Mrs. Berry, I really have been unaware of the reductions in your checks, and no one has given me any information about this. I'm going to ask one of my staff members to do some research, and we'll get back to you when I know more about it.
And how long will that take? I need more money now. I guess I can't expect someone like you to understand what I'm going through. I need help immediately.
I appreciate the time you took to come talk to me, and I do want to help my constituents, and I do depend on them to advise me of the issues that affect them. Please be sure to leave your contact information with my staff so I can get back to you when I have more information. And that's a bad one.
And we'll give you some time. We'll give you some time when it's over. You can throw your comments up here. So now we have Senator Smith and constituent Calderon. Good morning. Thank you for coming to meet me today. What did you come to talk about?
Good morning, Senator. My name is Cindy Calderon, and I know that you are very busy this time of year, and I sincerely thank you for taking the time to talk with me. Today I've come to let you know about a problem that affects not just me, but about 1.3 million blind, aged, and disabled Californians who have been pushed below the federal poverty level.
Well, I'm sorry to say I had no idea. Please give me as much information as you can so I'll know how to address this issue.
Well, many of us live on the supplemental security income amount that comes from the federal government, plus the state supplemental payment. In 2009, the amount was $907. And since then, the state has repeatedly failed to include the federal cost of living adjustments, or COLAs, and cut the state portion in order to balance the state budget. The SSI SSP grant is now $889 for an individual. And the rise in the cost of living has risen 14%, but the grants have not been adjusted.
Well, I totally agree that is not fair. I will do my best to resolve this issue. Do you have any specific information about how cost of living had increased that I could use to explain this situation to my colleagues?
Yes, and I'm so glad you asked. Actually, I have a couple of handouts to leave with you. The Alameda County Food Bank prepared a flyer with specific costs for the following. The average fair market rent for a studio is now $735 a month. Food costs average $257 for an individual. Medical and health care costs are another $334 a month. And finally, if a person must use public transportation to get around, the average cost a month is $239 for a total of $1,814 a month. And so as you can see, the $889 will just not cover that.
Thank you for those figures. Now, one more question. Do you know if there's a group or several groups who are advocating for this?
I'm happy to tell you that there are advocates from around the state discussing how to reverse the damage caused by the cuts to SSI, SSP, and improve economic security for California families and the communities. In October 2014, 80 representatives from diverse organizations convened in a statewide video conference to initiate this new coalition named California for SSI. I have a copy of the organizations that have endorsed the ask from the California SSI Coalition. Senator Smith, with the California economy on the rise, it is imperative that we do better for Californians currently living in poverty. We ask you to commit to building a state that works for all Californians by restoring both the prior cuts to state SSP grant and the cost of living adjustment. Thank you again for taking the time to learn about this critical issue.
And thank you for coming and telling me about it. I agree, some adjustment must be made. As you know, there are many requests from groups all over California for additional funds. Those of us in the legislature must make hard choices. You've convinced me of this need, and I will do my best to convince my colleagues. Please be sure my staff has your contact information so we can get back to you.
There you go.
So tell us about scene 1. Say it loud.
Yeah, the first scenario didn't have the facts,
No facts.
no facts.
A lot of emotion. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
She came in belligerent, like she had a chip on her shoulder, and she was gonna let everybody know about it.
And the chip on the shoulder doesn't invite cooperation, does it? Good, thank you. Anything else?
That she'd about herself, not general public.
Yeah, I came in with a story of 1. And how many people in California? Did you get that figure? Did you all get that figure? 1.3 million. We have fact sheets on the table. Anything else you want to say about scene 1?
She needs to say some positive things about the SSI program. It does save people's lives. And
Good
when
point.
she's talking about the negative, she should really say the positive too.
Say the positive things. Okay, let's skip to scene 2.
Lots of facts, lots of information.
Yeah. And maybe too much information to absorb, so she brought a fact sheet with her. Anything else? Yes.
I still think there's a point to be made that it's easier to get support for a program that is valuable and doing a good job as far as it's funded to do so, and not complaining so much about what you're not getting, but giving the legislator a reason to support what you want.
Did you all hear him? It's good to point out the valuable points of this program and give the legislature good reasons to argue for the positive. Yes.
It occurred to me that you never know, going in, which one of the types of legislators you're going to be talking to. One that's just, I got a meeting in 2 minutes, or talk to me, kind of thing. And so coming prepared with the positive, like everyone's mentioning, could help turn that person around. Maybe you may never be able to, but you don't stand a chance if you don't, I think.
And yes, everything you say is true, but it is possible that the legislator does have to go to a meeting in 2 minutes. In which case, what would you do?
Give them that 2 minutes.
Talk as fast as you can, leave the handouts, and say, there's more information I can give you.
And try to,
Yeah.
Or what I've learned in this, when I did a visit yesterday, but on a different issue, like kind of the same like the issue. What was interesting about it was they said a lot of things about DAPA and DACA for undocumented. What we really learned about it is a lot of these things are going to be decided in the budget hearing, and then they're going to have it on Thursday, then they wait for the conference committee. But what was really good about our meeting was the fact is we got both sides of it. You know, sometimes you get one side that says, yes, yes, we agree with you, yes, we're all for with you, yes, and they'll check that perfunctory box. But you got to get them to push them a little bit. They can say yes, but you got to get them to say, okay, what are you going to do to make sure that this happens? We get a
Okay,
lot of that.
Randy, stop right there. Another way to say that is, I really hope to hear from you what you're going to do to make this
Yes.
happen. Not just a challenge question, but, you know, I respect you, I know you've got a lot to do, but I'm really looking forward to hearing what you're going to do about it.
Yep.
Now, I know that I don't have much time, probably used up all my
I
time.
have one more.
Okay, I just want to make one more comment about Randy's comment. Nothing to stop you from inviting that legislator to a meeting of some of your group back home, where they can meet you back home. You can give them more information. They can see face to face who their constituents are. Now,
The best thing to do is eye-to-eye contact. Whenever you're talking to them, even if you have notes in front of you, make sure that you have eye-to-eye contact.
good point. Don't read like Cindy and I
Speak
did.
clearly.
Don't read like Cindy and I did. Have your points on 3x5 cards or something and just glance down, but don't read.
And the other thing is the leave behind. What happens with the leave behind is, you can do it one or two ways. Sometimes they want to leave behind so they know what the heck we're talking about, so they'll start reading it, but then they don't look at you. They don't look at you anymore.
Yeah, that's why you give it to them at the end.
Yeah.
And their
Oh,
staff
yeah.
person is going to put it in a file folder in
You
a
betcha.
drawer, and it's going to have a label on it.
You betcha.
And so when that issue comes up for a vote, they're going to say, get me those papers that that lady left in my office.
That's right, and they'll write it down, because if you did give them to leave behind, they won't write it down.
Got
And then they won't listen to it,
Got
because
it.
then they'll just read the paper.
What I felt at the first scenario was when friends were saying, what are you going to do about it? I felt like it was all on me.
It is on you.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I felt kind of attacked, like it was my personal fault, and I believe in accountability that this has happened. So that kind of, what are you going to do about it? That was rough.
And rude. Janie's given me the, oh no,
I just have one, talk about if you don't actually talk to the legislator, but to staff.
yes, if you don't get the meeting with the legislator, staff are the ones who absorb all this information and keep track of it and be as respectful to them as you would be to the legislature. When I was doing this work in Washington, D.C., we used to tell people, get the staff's name, find out what their birthday is, and next year on their birthday, be sure you send them a card, and on the birthday card, you say, thank you so much for the time you spent with me. You want to develop a relationship with the staff. Eldon talked this morning about when the public authorities were first being talked of and people said it wouldn't happen, it wouldn't happen. Eldon said it just did happen. I never contradict Eldon. It happened because people talked to their legislators. You elect them, they represent you, they can't represent you if you don't hear from them. And they're good people, they want to do good things, they just need information to help them make that decision.
He is tough.
Okay, Janie?
I have one
Oh, yes.
comment here.
Say it again.
On a federal and a state level there, I had concerns. First about the 7% cuts, and on another issue on a federal level. What letters I got back from them were generic, you know, come on down and we'll put you in the car that you can afford, you know, regardless of whether we're pulling it out of the junkyard or not, type of letter. Had nothing to do with whatever with the subject. How do you fight that then?
Oh. Don't stay on top of it.
Well, they have the generic letters, and sometimes they tell a staff person, send a letter to this person.